How's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming. Welcome back to learning GameMaker Studio 2. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to do a damage over time effect. This is the RPG series, so another thing that you'd want to handle in RPGs. So this guy's going to throw a fireball at us. If we hit it with an arrow, we can go bang and get rid of it. But if we try to hit it with a melee, it doesn't work, and a melee attack can't stop the spells in this game. So anyway, we get hit with the fireball. There's a chance that it sets us afire. And you can see that our life over here, we get hit, we take 5 HP damage. Boom. Each one of these bars is 5% of your life, and we got 100 life, so 5 HP. But when we get hit, there's a 75% chance that we get lit on fire. And when we get lit on fire, we're going to take 5 additional damage. So we're going to take the 5 that we get hit, boom, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we got hit again, boom. And you can see how long left the duration of the fire has based on how big the fire sprite is on the player. So you can see it doesn't always proc, but when it does proc, actually he's getting bad luck because it's 25% chance that it'll fail. Okay, boom. There you go. So if this is something that's interesting to you and you want to learn how to make something like that, this is the tutorial for you. So quite a few things are involved. I'm going to start with just the logic behind the damage over time, and then I'll go into a crash course on catching everything up if you don't catch everything. Okay, so the fireball itself, the damage over time, like when you draw that event, here's the fireball. This is the state itself here. So we're creating an event, give it the animation that you want to play on top of the player. Also, add another instance layer above your instance layer, so you have instance layer 2. That way we can draw this sprite onto instance layer 2, and it'll appear closer to the camera than the player. So, you know, it's top of the stack, so you'll see it before. So it draws it on top. You guys understand how that works. So this is what you see first, the top and then down. So that makes sense. So if you see the player here, then this will be on top of it. So here's the 4 events that you need: a create, a destroy, a step, and an alarm 0. On the create, we're just going to add the state to the player, so we're going to control its location. When it's created, by whatever means that you decide it's created by, you're going to set its X and Y locations to where you want the state to be applied on. Now, this is going to be drawn when the player has been inflicted with burning, so this state is going to be drawn on the player's X and the player's Y. I'm going to change the scale. This is will be different for you depending on the size of your sprites and the size of your animation and all that stuff. Since 64, it's pretty big in comparison to the size of the player. So I'm scaling it down to 35% of its actual value. And then I'm going to say image Y scale is the same as image X scale. That means if I ever change the image X scale, the Y scale will automatically update on its own. So that means I can... Oh, actually... This won't. This is on the create, so it won't do that. What I could do is cut this or copy this and put this down here. So I could do it this way: image Y scale equals image X scale, and these will be the same. Or you could just specify what is what on each type. So it doesn't really matter which way. Back to the create. So we're just picking a random angle for the fire because this blob looks. It doesn't really matter what direction it's facing. It's sort of a circular blob. I can show you the animation up here to show you what I'm talking about. So if we play this animation, you see it's sort of just like a circular blob. So it doesn't really matter what angle I pick, but we do want to pick an angle randomly. That way it looks like it's moving around more. So every step of the game, what I'm doing is I'm saying image angle is a random range between 0 and 360. So every frame it's going to be a different random angle. So it's going to jump around quite a bit and look more animated. Now we're going to select how many frames do we want this to last. And this will also be dependent on how many frames per second our game is running. If you don't know how to change your game's frames per second, go up to this game options thing. And then it's under general. You can set how many FPS you want to run at. It's 30 by default, so you want to click on that. Game options, go to general, and change that to 60 if you haven't already. That way we can keep track of durations and stuff like that. So I'm saying I want 60 frames per second, and I want this to last for 5 seconds. Well, 60 times 5 is 300. So I'm going to make an arbitrary value of 300 to say I want, let's say it lasts 5 seconds. So we're going to add the step event. On the step event, we're going to have right here, let's see, this doesn't need to be here. That was for something else. Okay, so each frame of the game, we are going to subtract 1 from the duration. And if the duration is less than or equal to 0, we're going to get rid of it. So this is our timer. This is how we control, you know, how long it lasts. Very simple. Give it a starting duration. Every frame of the game, take away 1 of those. And then say if it's less than or equal to 0, get rid of it. Simple logic to control how long you want an object to last. You can also do this with image alpha or whatever, but to avoid creating a variable. You can use built-in values to even make it more optimized if you want to, but then it would also become more invisible. Anyway, you can do that however you want to do it. So now we're just selecting, we know that it's going to, duration is a variable on here that's going to be ran from 300 all the way down to 0, and then it's going to end. So we know that every frame of the game it's going to check, and it's going to say duration 299, then the next frame 298. So eventually, after 1 second or less than a second, duration is going to be 242. So at that point, this lets us control how our time. You know, this lets us control, is it 2 seconds between every tick of damage? Is it 3 seconds? Is it 10 seconds? Is it half a second? Is it 5 frames? You know, how long in between each tick? Do you want to go like ta 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 ta? You get hit a lot, you know, or do you want to go like tsh, tsh, tsh? We'll just time it. You can even use online tools to figure out your tempo, right? 60 beats per minute is the same as 60 frames per second, or it would work the same. So that's how you can kind of figure that out too. Anyway, now we just we figured out our timing logic. We get to specify what happens. Now that we've figured out when we want things to happen, we get to specify what happens. Well, how do we say what happens? Well, we're going to just throw all that in an alarm, so that's easy. We're going to say, at duration 242, set an alarm 0 for 1 frame. So in 1 frame, so when it actually hits duration 241, it's going to run this code. So add your event, alarm 0. So we're going to say, this is where we issue the damage. So we're going to say with whatever object is holding your life value. Like if it's on your player, you would put with O_player, life minus equals 1. And you're also going to reference the name of the variable that you're using to store the life. Or your health or whatever, and so you do that with this and that. Now keep in mind, if you're going to do multiple things, you have to encapsulate it like this, right? So whenever you're doing something, you'd have to encapsulate it if you're doing more than one thing. But since I'm only doing one thing, I just want to subtract life, I don't need any of these brackets, curly brackets at all. But see right here, with the player, I'm doing 2 things, right? I'm setting my image blend to a color of red. That's what's making the player flash red. And I'm also playing a particle effect. So this isn't built in for you. This is a script I made. It's just particle rasp, and I made this with the particle, you know, a particle designer. And then I just basically went, take this and copy it to the clipboard. And then I opened up my particle system and I pasted in here and I renamed this to whatever I wanted to call it. And then I basically did the game end, destroy that particle when the game ends. And now I can call it if I create particles create. Or I can do, where are my scripts? Here we go. Or I can just make a script to shorthand particles create. So variable x is argument 0, variable y is argument or, you know, you have to use y, and x because x and y are built in. And then amount for argument 2. And so we're going to say particle create. This is the name of the system object. This is the name of the system variable. This is the thing we're passing in. We're passing in the second argument. This is the name of the object that's holding the data we just copy pasted. And then this is the variable we're using to store that data, .rasp, and then the amount we're passing in. So that's the, excuse me, the script for that. So there's our particle system. That's what we're doing right there. So it's playing those particle effects, and it's doing it's turning the players red. Now, if you just do this, it's going to make the player stay red forever. So you have to do something else. In another event, on your data manager or on your player, you need to do something to check when the player's blend mode is set to red, and then set an alarm or something to make sure that after a certain number of time, it goes back to color C white that way, which means no blending. So it's blended red, we want to take the blending off after a certain amount of time. So we can check if the player, if O underscore player image underscore blend is equals C red, that means whenever this has happened, then do something else. So let's take a look at where that's being checked at. On my player, I've got a bunch of code, but right here, I'm saying if the image blend is C red, right? And now, because I'm inside of this O underscore player object, I don't have to go O underscore player dot, right? Because I'm referencing built-in information, built-in values for this object. And every object will have its own image blend, image alpha, and all that stuff. So we're saying if the image blend is red, so we know this is, come on mouse, come on middle mouse. Here we go. So we know that this has happened. So when this has happened, we want to set our image alpha minus equals 0.025. Now this is a timer. Like I said, you can create another variable and just use a variable to toggle it down to make it however long you want it to last. You can also set an alarm 1. If whatever, if image equal blend equals C red, alarm 1 equals 10, right? And then after 10 seconds, or after 10 frames, it's going to run alarm 1, and alarm 1 can do this, right? Image blend equals C white, image alpha equals 1. All you would have to do is, so you could do this with an alarm. I also manipulated the image alpha of the player just to make it flash a little bit. So I actually liked adjusting the alpha in here, but you see it's not always worth adjusting the alpha. As I said in the other object, where is it at? The burning, the blobby blobs, le blob. You can see here, instead of doing an image alpha for a timer, I just created a duration and manually made a timer because I don't want to control the opacity of this at all by adjusting the alpha. But when I want to control the alpha, I can bypass using a timer, right, or an alarm, and just control it by saying if my alpha is at something something, do this. So if my alpha is less than or equal to 70%, so if I'm 30% see-through, then set my alpha back to 1 and take away the blend mode. So all of that seems like a whole lot of little things, and that's all it is, a lot of little things. But when you combine all those little things together, you get the effect of red flash with the particle effects. The player kind of gets a little more see-through, and then it goes back to full opacity and no blend mode, and the particle effect dies off. It repeats the process a set number of times, and you get your damage over time effect. Really easy thing to do. Now, that's basically it for the tutorial on how to do the state. Now, if you want to do a quick crash course on some of the things that you may have missed to catch up to this, let's say, how do you do random chance? So the random chance is easy. Right here, I'm doing some code. I'm doing a script call I found online, but it's really easy. You don't need to find the script. All you basically do is if you want to check a random chance. Now let's give you some context. We're at the Fire Blast. This is the spell that the enemy launches at us, right? He throws a Fire Blast at us. If it hits us, it creates the burning effect, right? So when this is created, I'm setting this, because the size is a little large, I'm reducing its size, and I'm setting alarm from the beginning. So at the very beginning, setting alarm 240. So once again, we're running 60 frames per second. After 4 seconds, alarm 0 is going to happen, and it's going to run out of time and get rid of itself. So it's basically, he's going to throw a fireball, but after about 4 seconds, it's going to run out of steam and just disappear. And it's also going to, this is just part particles create, guys. It's just part particles create with the random chance to get different numbers so that it looks different each time. That's all that is. So moving along, on the step, direction, point direction, X, Y, players X, players Y. Speed, random range between whatever speed and whatever speed. Image, angle, point direction, your X, Y of this to the player's X, Y. And that's going to have it move towards the player each time. Really simple logic for that. If it collides with the player, here's where, now that you've got a context of what's going on, with the player, set our image blend to C red. Now once again, not only does the damage over time run this code, where's it at? The C red, where's our player? Our player is right here. So when we get hit with the fireball, it does this. So it runs the, we got hit, make our character flash red for a second, right? And slightly slightly see-through for a second, even with without the damage of time. Now, here's the chance. Now, here's the code for chance. Now, basically, this is a real simple thing. All you're doing is you're checking if, you know, whatever. Say you want to have a 50% chance, you would just go 0.5 or 0.50 for 50% chance. So if 0.5 is greater or equal then to a random 1. So what random is going to do is pick a random value. Oops, what am I doing? So you would do your thing here. Do stuff here. Stuff. If it is true or if it's true, stuff goes here, right? You know, or if you're going to do multiple things, you would do that. So what this is checking is saying, if our 50% chance is greater than a random number between 0 and 1, which basically boils down to 50% of the time, do this. Right? 50% of the time, do that. Does that make sense? Real easy. So, to shorthand that, there's a little script online. It's this chance. And if you want to get that script, it's right here. Chance.gml. Basically, all you need to do is type in return argument 0 greater than random 1. Or greater than equal to. It doesn't matter, really. If you do greater than without the equals, I think online it's like that. If you do the equals, then you're going to get that slight percent chance that more stuff is going to be in your favor. Because 0 can proc and 1 can proc as well. Even though it's not an int, so it's unlikely that 0, absolute 0, and absolute 1 will proc. Very, very, very small chance because it's dot to so many numbers. Anyway, I'm digressing. There's a simple chance script for you to do random chance if you want. Make sure you do randomize at the beginning of the game too, on any object. Just do that at the beginning of the game once. That way, you don't get the same random rolls. Because computers aren't good at random. They run an actual algorithm, and it uses the time as well. So the time that the game has been running, you're going to get the same results if you time your actions. You know, your random things can be predicted. Because of math. So if you randomize, what this does is creates a random seed, and that seed is going to change what happens based on the time. So randomize whenever you're doing anything like chance or anything, or random stuff. Just do a single randomize in the game. That's all you need, and then it randomizes your like your hash or your seed. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Here's the thing where we're doing an optional variable for the state. So on the data, also if that lands, so 75% chance, if that returns true, then set a variable to true that's on this object. So we're saying player state burning is now true on data manager, and we're going to create, and here's why we did the second instance layer, because we want to add burning on top of it. So instance create layer xy instance layer 2, and then the object burning that we created. This object the blob object. Where's it at? Here it is. So we're creating that above the player. So once that is created, all of this stuff happens. So at the end is basically what happens at the beginning. Right? And then we're doing random particles create here. With the data manager, we got hit with the fire blast, so take some damage, and the fire blast can go bye-bye now that it already ran its percent chance to set the player on fire and create another object, and it already did the damage. So, and then if you want to control the percent chances, all you have to do is adjust this number. That's pretty much it. So let's take a look at it in action one last time. This tutorial could have probably been 10 minutes, but I went over some extra stuff just because it might be helpful, people. Anyway, let's get hit with the fireball. Boom, we got hit. We can see that this is getting smaller. It's rotating, it's animating. Particles are being created. Boom, 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 boom. And it can be refreshed while it's, currently. And you can see how long it's lasting by the size of it. I think it turned out really well. A cool little burning fire damage over time. Boom. Cool. So that's going to do it for this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please give this video a thumbs up, like, favorite, share, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I've got lots of game dev stuff. And keep your eyes open for more GameMaker Studio 2 stuff. I'm going to be doing more of that because I've got a lot of RPG Maker stuff, and there's a competition right now going on for I think it's like 10 grand or something. So you guys can check that out if you're into RPG Maker stuff. I'm not getting any games sent to me, and I imagine it's because there's a big ass competition where people are just cracking down and trying to make some money. I mean, it's unlikely. Don't get your hopes up, but there's no harm in submitting a game and trying to win that competition. So that's why there's very little first impressions. No one's sending me games because of this competition that's going on, which is cool. I think it's probably better for the people that there's a competition where there's like some paying stuff going on. That's pretty neat. If I didn't have too many things going on, I would probably try to throw something together for it, but you know, it's probably not going to happen. Plus, I found out about it like a few days late. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. These videos take a long time to get views in comparison, but I've learned something doing this over the past couple years, is you have to do what you want to do. You have to do, when you're making videos, you've got to love what you're doing, and I love this what I'm doing right here. And it's another thing to point out is your passions and the things what you want to do is all based on, you know, the fourth dimension. It's all based on time and what's relevant at the time and how you feel at the time. So that's one thing I've learned. Do what you want to do, and if you're having fun, other people will kind of see that, and it's not worth it trying to fake some other stuff that I could be doing when I absolutely don't want to be doing it at all. This is fun to me. Hopefully you guys enjoy this sort of thing. I want to make a cool little RPG with a lot of mechanics that I've seen in other games in the past. But anyway, this has gone on way too long. I love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. That's there if you guys want to back me on Patreon. Yeah, keep having fun, doing what you guys like to do. We'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye-bye. Hit me up on Discord if you have any questions, or if you just want to see like extra stuff. I usually post GIFs there. Bye bye.